And joining us today in our Book Talk segment, we're going to find out how we can make some money. The book is called The Millionaire Master Plan, Your Personalized Plan to Financial Success. We're joined today by Roger James Hamilton on the telephone today, who has lived this basically in his life. We'll find out about it. And Roger, good to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on, Doug.
Yeah, good to have a chance to chat with you. I read through the book. I did the little quiz, so I'm ready to go to become a millionaire. So I don't have to do this every day. I'd still do this, though. I enjoy it. But this is actually a little bit different than a lot of books that may show you how to make some money. First of all, you kind of did this through necessity, right? You found your car being repossessed one day, so you had to do something, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think a lot of people end up in a pretty difficult jam because they either lost their job or because the economy turned around. I had no one to blame but myself. This was my mid-20s when I just was putting so much money and effort into my business to try and make it work that I just wasn't paying the bills I needed to be paying at home. And that ended up in a pretty embarrassing situation that I talk about in the book where not only was my car being repossessed, but it was happening when we had just had our first daughter, Kathleen, and poor Renata, my wife, was outside, not even realizing how bad the situation was because I hadn't been totally honest with her about how bad the money situation was. So she didn't even know what was happening. And our neighbors were watching as well, so it was a pretty excruciating moment for me.
When you had that situation happen to you, what was kind of the impetus and what did you do differently at that point? Because at that point you kind of scrambling just to survive. What did you do?
Right, exactly. I mean, I was at that point where I thought I was actually doing all the things I had to be doing, and it turned out I really wasn't. I think a lot of us, we can relate to the idea of this happening in our health. You know, we know we could be eating more healthily or we could be exercising more, and it's only when we have that kind of health scare that suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I've actually got to do something about it now. That kind of happened to me with my wealth as opposed to my health. But what was really interesting is rather than actually saying, well, I'll just go do the things I'm not doing, I did the opposite. I was actually, my education was a kind of pretty standard upbringing, going to school like most of us have, and then going to Cambridge University where I got a pretty good education. But it was all about book learning, and really what I learned was that book learning isn't just something which is theoretical. It's also something which makes you have to focus on the things you're not so strong at. You know, it's like I'm great at art, and I didn't have to ever use book learning for art. But I had to use book learning for learning French or for doing my maths, and I didn't really enjoy those things so much. And when I looked at my business, I realized I was putting all my time into things that I really wasn't so good at. I was trying to sell, go out and meet people. I wasn't so good at that. I was trying to kind of do my numbers. I wasn't so good at that. And when I realized I've got to stop everything I'm doing that feels like hard work, I've got to do things I'm really great at, I started focusing at the one genius I have, which is my dynamo genius. A bit like, someone like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs doesn't have to go out and sell anything because his products are so great, and he has other people doing his numbers. So I followed that same process, and that allowed me to turn things around very quickly. Like within a matter of years, I was a multimillionaire.
You break it down. You mentioned the dynamo geniuses. You have 4 different categories, right? Dynamo, Blaze, Tempo, and Steel. Can you kind of briefly explain those?
Sure. And just before I do, Doug, what did you come out with when you enter it yourself?
I think I'm more of a creative person, so
exactly.
That would be my. I guess we're all kind of a little bit of everyone, but that would be the majority one. That's what I came out at.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the things that most people think. Yeah, I've done personality tests. I don't believe in them because I'm a bit of everything. Well, this is more than just talking about what personality you are. It's actually talking about what game you should play, because you'll probably find that any books you pick up which gives you good advice, there'll be some other expert somewhere who'll give you the total opposite. And it's a little bit like someone saying, okay, when you're playing the game, you've got to pick up the ball instead of kicking it, and then someone else goes, no, you've got to kick it, not pick it up. And you think they're contradicting each other until you realize one's talking about basketball and one's talking about soccer. And then you realize, there's actually different games based on, and different rules based on what you naturally do best. And so these 4, they link to the 4 seasons. There's something that goes back to Plato's time where he talks about, spring energy, the dynamo genius, which is all about being creative. You've got Blaze geniuses, which isn't so much the Richard Bransons and the Steve Jobs, but more of the Oprah Winfreys and the Donald Trumps that made all their money through relationships and through having a good time. And then you'll have the tempo geniuses who are more like the Warren Buffetts or the George Soroses, who Warren Buffett never has to start up anything or be creative. He doesn't even like going out and hanging out with people that much, but because he's so good at timing, he knows how to time the markets. And then the final one, Steel Genius, are people who are the introverts, They don't have to go out and be creative with new products or people. They'll be able to invest all their time in better systems. People like Mark Zuckerberg or Larry Page, who create things like Facebook and Google, have just got a great system that other people can then be using. And understanding that every one of us has got one of these, it means that we have a very natural personal path to how we could go about not just creating more wealth for ourselves, but delivering more value in a way that's natural.
Now, when you determine which one of these geniuses you may be, like you said, let's say your business isn't doing that well, how do you apply that quickly to try and turn your business around, or maybe just improve on it if you're not if you're not broke at that point?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it happens very, very quickly, because what happens is when you find out which one you are, and in the book I've given a test which shows where you are, not just in terms of which genius you are, but what level you're at as well. Because that was the other problem I had, was when I was getting going, it was a bit like I was reading books on how to build a successful business, and then I was out there trying to do it, a little bit like someone learning to ski for the first time, where you're kind of going straight to the black slope, and then wondering why you end up crashing. And it's like getting at the right level where you're starting from as well. So once you actually know what you are and you know what level you're at, immediately, let's say, for example, someone finds out they're blaze genius, which means they love having a good time. They've read books on personal finance, which tell them they have to, manage their budgets, and they go, I couldn't think of anything worse to do. And then they read this book and they go, wow, I'm blaze genius. I can actually get myself out of debt by actually having a lot of fun doing it with a team. Other people can work out the number side. I'm being taught what systems I can use, so I don't have to worry about it myself. And I've got a time once a week when I'm meeting up in a really fun environment with the right people that are going to support me in what I'm doing. And then, boom, straight away, you find yourself actually looking forward to those moments during the week when you're actually going to be shifting everything around, because it's what you love to do as opposed to something that feels like hard work.
Right. You mentioned the spectrum of wealth, and you break that down at whatever level you may be at that point. Can you kind of explain that briefly, how that works?
Yeah, think about the spectrum as a little bit like gears in a car, where each of us, we get to a bit of a glass ceiling, where the winning formula that took us to this level isn't going to break us through to the next level. Just like, putting your foot on the gas in first gear isn't going to get you to second gear. And so by understanding that, it's like, wow, look at that. It's like I'm in a job. What makes me really great at being in this job is that I know how to follow direction. I know how to work in a team. Wow, if I'm going to go out and start my own business, being good at direction and being good in a team isn't going to help me to get something started. So I've actually got to unlearn the things that I'm using right now when I'm waking up and going to work each day to be able to go up next level. And then knowing, it's like, wow, that's a bit like going from Clark Kent to Superman. It's a whole different pathway, but it's the same person still. So I got to know, if I'm going to go from one to the other, well, how do I make sure I've still got some Clark Kent time, so there's some money coming in? How do I make sure that I've got Superman time? And where's my phone booth? Where am I actually showing up and going to get changed from one to the other? And by understanding and using these contextual things we already understand, we can then make those transitions without having to feel we're risking it all to get to the next level.
Now, you've kind of turned this into, I guess, a different business, right? You kind of mentor or entrepreneurs around the world, don't you?
Yeah, the one biggest thing I find that for anyone who wants to do anything different in your life, whether it's learn a new instrument, whether it's to get healthy, whether it's to get wealthy, is change your environment. So one of the things that I realized was when I went out to Bali in Indonesia, which is where I live right now, it had such a beautiful spirit and environment to it. I could become much more successful in my business than sitting in a city behind a desk trying to work on that business. So we set up an entrepreneur resort there. We have people that come out for like 30 days at a time, and they learn how to literally build a business which you can run from anywhere, and that's designed around the lifestyle that you want. And we have people from America, from Canada, from all over the world who come out for that. And it's pretty amazing the transformations that happen when you just step outside of the day-to-day. You see things with a new perspective where you no longer believe you're kind of stuck in a rut or stuck in a situation that can't change. And so my whole focus is in how to change and transform someone's environment in such a way that they actually believe they can achieve something much greater than they might be achieving right now.
Yeah, well, the world has changed, particularly the way people do work now. Remotely, people can work more easily now, so that's making it, I guess, in some ways, maybe a little bit easier to be an entrepreneur now, right? A little bit more freedom involved there, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is when you actually say, well, how would I actually run my, my life and my business from remotely from somewhere else? You actually got to start saying, well, what would I actually be measuring to even know if it's going right or not? And you start thinking about what's really important to you. How would you measure that? Because we treasure what we measure. So unless we actually have a way we can measure it, there's no way to even see it anyway. And I think probably one of the biggest things is, for anyone listening, if you think, well, I've tried everything I can, I still can't get successful, or I can't lift to the next level, what we're going to do is ask ourselves, do we think there's someone out there who may not be as smart as us, may not be as hardworking as us, but somehow are earning 10 times what we're earning right now? And if you think, yeah, there definitely are. In fact, even people with the same experience and even younger than us that actually are doing that already, then we've got to ask ourselves, so what is it that's happening in their lives which is is it either just totally lucky, or is it that there's actually quite a number of them out there that just simply change the environment and the people they're working with, or even the industry that they're in a way that allowed them to do that? And it's never too late for anyone to make that change and to shift to a very, very different situation where you're actually getting far, far more results for being the same person that you are.
Name of the book is The Millionaire Master Plan, Your Personalized Path to Financial Success. We've been talking with Roger James Hamilton today. And Roger, I know in the book as well, there's like you said, the test people can take. Give out that information and where people can get the book.
Yeah, if anyone who's excited or interested in this idea, you can go to millionairemasterplan.com, and just because we are running these different programs in places like Hawaii and in Bali and so on, we've got this $50,000 scholarship competition right now as well that everyone's getting involved in, to kind of mark the launch of the book. So that's all also at that website, millionairemasterplan.com.
Great. Roger, pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we can do it again. Thank you for joining us today.